Imagine two students in the same classroom, same lesson, same test. On the one hand, student A understands the social conflict in her neighborhood perfectly. She can explain it, defend it, connect it to her own life. But her English is weak. On the other hand, student B doesn't really understand the social issue, but his English is strong. The same test. Two very different stories. Who gets the higher grade? Of course, student B. Every time, and that is a problem. This is a real kind of case in schools that integrate social studies in English, like the one I started my own research in Comuna 8, Medellín. A teacher builds a unit about local social conflicts and human rights. Students read short text in English, learn key vocabulary, and at the end they take one written test worth 20% of the grade. The test mixes context knowledge and English use with no rubric that separates the two. So a student's grade doesn't really tell you what they know. It tells you which language they're stronger in. Let's look at this through the four purposes of evaluation. Evaluation of learning, measuring what was learned, is the only purpose present here, one single final test. But where is evaluation for learning, feedback along the way before the final grade? Where is evaluation as learning, students reflecting on their own bilingual process, and evaluation in learning, connecting the test to a real, authentic task in a student's own community, all missing. One purpose doing all the work. That's the first problem. Now principles. Validity means an instrument measures what it says it measures. But this test measures two different things: social understanding and English proficiency, with just one grade. What does the number actually tell us? Not much. That's a validity problem. And then there's equity. Equity doesn't mean treating every student the same. It means recognizing the context affects performance. A student with less exposure to English, maybe from a lower income family, is punished here, not for what they know about the community, but for a language gap that has nothing to do with the learning objective. And what type of evaluation do we see? Only summative, no formative check-ins, no self-assessment, no peer assessment, no competency-based tasks. The richest part of learning, connecting to language to understand your own social reality, is invisible in this grade. So here's the dilemma. When we integrate content and language, whose learning are we actually measuring? If we are not careful, we don't evaluate bilingual thinking. We just reproduce inequality with an English level on it. This isn't a small classroom mistake. It's the kind of hidden bias that research on teacher bias calls institutional reinforcement, where instruments not just individual teachers quietly disadvantage the same students again and again. So, what can we do? First, a dual criteria rubric: one column for social content, one for English use, graded separately. Second, formatting checkpoints like a class built bilingual glossary with feedback before the final test. Third, an authentic task, a shared bilingual community project instead of only a written exam. And fourth, self and peer assessment. So students reflect on their own processes in both languages, not just the final product. Let's go back to student A and student B. With these changes, both finally get a fair chance to show what they truly know, in whichever language they're still building. Because good evaluation shouldn't ask a student to choose between their language and their knowledge. It should make room for both. Thank you.